think we're about ready.
Yeah, it's just about done. Okay.
Yeah, 55 people here. That's great.
Whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cayuga Waterfront Trail, 20 years in the making. This is a presentation brought to you by Friends of Stewart Park, who now stewards the Cayuga Waterfront Trail as well. I'm Janelle Elvstead-Matson, and I wanted to introduce a few things before I introduce our panelists. We're on a webinar, which means that you cannot be seen or heard. Only our panelists can. But if you have questions, down at the bottom, there is a little part with two bubbles. The one with two bubbles is the question and answers, and you can ask your questions in there. And Rick and Jean will answer them at the end if they have not been answered already within the presentation. Okay, Rick, I think we're ready to go on to the next page. We would like to invite you to save the dates for some other coming exciting things that Friends of Stewart Park have going on. We have found out recently that the carousel in Stewart Park actually turned 70 years old this year, not last year as we originally thought. But this year is the 70th year of the Stewart Park Carousel, and we plan to have a celebration for it. So the celebration will be Saturday, June 25th. And of course, we'll also have a rain date of the 26th, but hopefully you can come out and have some cupcakes, some music, and ride the carousel for free. We have water music, which is the annual music along the Cayuga Waterfront Trail. That will be August 19th this year. And Friends of Stewart Park hosts a large fundraising event every year, or large-ish, that is always a lot of fun, called Party for the Park. And this year, the Party for the Park, will be September 24th. The carousel, how I mentioned that it will turn 25 or will turn 70 years old this year. One of the ways, or how we discovered that, is when we were looking into the history of the carousel for our presentation that we did last month. And you can find that carousel history and information all about it on the Zoom that we did last month on our YouTube page, the Friends of Stewart Park YouTube page. You can find it easily by either Googling Friends of Stewart Park YouTube. It's got a weird address that we can't really help. Or you can just go to our website at www.stewartpark.org/videos, and that will give you the link to the website where you can see not only the carousel history, but we did a bunch of webinars just like this last year for the centennial. One where we talked about the history of rowing in Stewart Park and on Cayuga Lake, the history of Stewart Park in general, a great one with Finger Lakes Land Trust, where we talked about the health of Cayuga Lake and the land around it and how we can protect that, and Birds of Stewart Park with Steve Kress, and more. You can find all of those videos for free at YouTube. And now, without further ado, I will introduce the Executive Director of Friends of Stewart Park, Rick Manning. Take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Janelle. Nice job. And welcome, everyone. We are celebrating. There it is. We like anniversaries at Friends of Stewart Park. So last year was the centennial of Stewart Park. We've discovered, as Janelle just said, that this is the 70th anniversary of the carousel. Who knew? I sure didn't. And we also realized that it's the 20th anniversary of the ribbon cutting for the Cass Park Trail. And we thought that was worth a celebration, and to bring Jean back into the public eye again. I guess you're still in the public eye, Jean. But so anyway, Jean McPheeters will be joining me. And hi, Jean. It's a pleasure to see you again. And do our dog and pony show like we used to do so much. Her job in these is to tell me if I'm sounding like a planning geek and stop me. So she is on call to do that. So Friends of Stewart Park, we have a mission. We are on a mission, and I won't read it to you because you can read it, and I'm just going to move on. Ithaca is so fortunate to be a waterfront, lakefront town. This is a view from up high that I took in an airplane back in the day when you had to do this with Tom Niederkorn when we worked on the local waterfront revitalization plan. Shout out to Tom Niederkorn, another one who's sadly missing. But it shows just what a beautiful waterfront we have and how much public land we have. We're very fortunate and blessed for that. We are one of the southern gateways to the Erie Canal. I guess you could say there's two of them, and there are others further west, but that's sort of relevant to our story today. So we're going to give you a little background on that, not much, but just a little bit. One reason that the Waterfront Trail really became a reality, or I guess became an idea that Jean and I decided to get after and make happen, was in the early 90s, the state decided to shift the canal system from DOT to the Thruway Authority, and to create a canal recreation way committee, and to fund a lot of improvements along the canal. So Ithaca decided, smartly, I think, that many of the organizations and municipalities in Tompkins County should get together to develop a plan. And the idea was just to kind of collect projects that would enhance public access to the waterfront, docking facilities, and just the quality of life for the community. So in that process, I worked on that while I worked for Trowbridge and Wolf Landscape Architects. It was a project that the county planning department, the city planning department, the town planning department, the Chamber of Commerce, Cornell University were all contributors to the project and participated in it. And that's where Jean and I met, actually, and started to brainstorm ideas about this. And this is from that plan. And we, at the time, and that plan is where the Cayuga Inlet Trail, as we called it at the time, was conceptualized. And I worked very closely with Peter Trowbridge on this. And that's really where the idea came from. So I think it's something that by 92, this idea was out there. And then some other things happened that Jean will talk about now. And please welcome Jean McPheeters, the former chamber president and my partner on the Trail Initiative.
Hi, Rick, and hi, everyone. This was a wonderful thing that happened in 1991, and actually our Senator Moynihan had a lot to do with it. This was ICE-T, the acronym for the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, which put a huge amount of money into transit. Transit, has to be reauthorized every so often. But one of the things that it did that was unusual is it made an understanding that trails are part of transportation, that they actually get people somewhere. They're not only recreational, they're bigger than that. And so money became available, and across the country, people started to build trails. And I know that Rick was inspired by several of those.
Yeah, so following a couple of projects that we worked on in this ICE-T era from like 95 to 2000, while I was at Trowbridge and Wolf, was both funded by ICE-T, and there were many others throughout the country, but certainly in upstate New York. But the Binghamton did a pretty aggressive greenway study. that I managed, and Peter was also very involved with it, Peter Trowbridge, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to kind of plan this whole network of riverfront trails for Binghamton, and it just got me thinking, we need to do this, something like this in Ithaca. It was a different scale, but it was a really interesting process to me. The other thing, a very significant state park project like the Black Diamond Trail was the Catherine Valley Trail, and that connects Watkins Glen and Monterey Falls to Millport, Pine Creek, almost to Elmira and the Chemung River. And there was a canal back in the day that, and then a railroad that connected this was another gateway from the Cayuga Seneca Canal system for Pennsylvania and the southern tier to get up to the canal to transport goods and services to either Buffalo or to New York City. So these two projects were inspiring to me. They gave me confidence to go out on my own, which I did in 2000. And but with the Binghamton project, I work with a consultant who said you have to go to Canada and look at two projects. And so Sally and I and a bunch of friends from Ithaca, Robert and Leslie and Vicky and Dave and others, we spent a couple of vacations and looked at this project, the Petite Train du Nord, which is a beautiful rail trail, 200 kilometers in the Laurentian Mountains. And the level of trail investment in trails kind of blew me away and was very exciting. I think trails can be sort of engineered and boring, and I think there's a real opportunity to bring design to trails. And I thought not only was that interesting and fun, but I thought it would be good for fundraising as well. And I think that proved to be true. But there was a level of just consideration for the beauty and the opportunities that trail presented that I was kind of surprised by and pleased to see. Here's Sally and Thomas many years ago at the Parc René Lévesque along the Lachine Canal. And the other place that they told me to go is to look at Montreal, because there is this national park. And these are all nationally funded, and they invest a lot of money in the public landscape in Canada. But anyway, just some beautiful, inspiring images of furnishing designs and park design. And I just really wanted to bring this back to this project. And so I reached out to the chamber and to Jean. We had met at waterfront planning meetings, both through the waterfront plan and also the local waterfront revitalization plan that occurred afterwards. And Jean was also familiar. She kind of got it. And this is one place that—
Right, I got it because we have family in Duluth, Minnesota, and had been there several times. And Duluth used to have a really sad waterfront because it had been a big shipping place, but the shipping had died out of taconite ore, and it was left just a destructive mess. But they, the federal government put a interstate through, and they put it through the city, and the city government there, I think, was very wise. They said, yeah, we'll let you put this through as a tunnel, but on top of it and next to it, you have to let us clean up the waterfront, and you have to pay for it, and we're going to put in a trail. And they started with a very small amount of trail. That trail is now 8 miles long. And they have both a walking trail that's on the boardwalk and a riding trail. So they managed to separate that because they had enough room. And Duluth has really become a major tourist attraction. I know that's hard to believe considering what their winters are like, but there are a lot of hotels and bars and restaurants and entertainment places in this entire area now.
You want to run with this, Jean?
Sure. So, yeah, what was the chamber's interest? I always felt that Route 13 cut the city off from the water. And one of the things that inspired me is I went out Daniel and I, my husband is on this for some reason. We don't know why. Wave, Daniel. And as a panelist, you're seeing our ceiling. And but we had taken our canoe out and gone like out in back of Wegmans and down, like the creek up towards the high school, and saw what a beautiful area it really is, and how accessible it is if you have a watercraft. And that a lot of people were back there. They were fishing, there was great bird life, but that a lot of people in our community never saw that. And so I knew that this was a real attraction, and I thought it would be an enormous attraction for tourists to walk, to visit places like the farmers market, which is a huge tourist attraction in and of itself. And so when Rick started talking with me about this, I immediately got it. And I was able to talk with the chamber board about this, and happily the chamber board got it as well. They also thought that investing the chamber's time in this in terms of fundraising and using the chamber's foundation to help raise the funds and channel those funds into a partnership with the city would really be of benefit to the community and to the businesses in the area.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the aerial because the city really is blocked off from the water by Route 13, but yet there's so much public land. I mean, 75% of the land is park land, the Treeman Marina, Cass Park, the golf course, and Stewart
Right.
Park, and the bird sanctuary. So there's this incredible opportunity to do this, and it made it much easier to do, though it had its challenges, as we will explore, and most of you know. Well, the Park Foundation, like so many things in Ithaca, what would we be without the Park Foundation? It's hard to imagine Ithaca without it. They supported this idea generously initially, so we could really dig into it. And I know Jean knew Joanne Florino very well, and Joanne seemed to totally get it as well. And
yes,
really,
Joanne was working for the Park Foundation then as its executive director, and really did get it and was able to explain to the board why this was important, what this would do for the economy, and also what this would do for and the lakefront area and for the people of our community. And they gave us this $55,000 grant, which really helped the entire thing get kicked off. It was pretty fabulous.
yeah. So just I'll walk us through what our approach was, and Jean, you can chime in whenever you feel inspired. This is Jean's, the back of her head, and the trail starts here. Was a hat that she had made, I think, for the ribbon cutting. I'm not sure, but
for the ribbon cutting, we got these hats for all the members of the board and our staff. And we wanted people to understand that the trail starts with them. It starts with people.
Mm-hmm. So the beauty of this project was the support that we got from the Park Foundation allowed us to step back and really think about how to approach this. And we were inspired by, and we actually had many advisory board meetings. I'm sure many of you that are out there participated at some of them at the chamber conference room, and got a lot of great input. We shared ideas. We developed a logo quickly, working with Iron Design. We got engaged with Gary Wojcik of AccuFab, who basically was an artist sculptor who had to make a living. So he created a fabrication company, and they're still going strong. Gary has moved on, but we work with them still, and really helped with a lot of the design of the benches, the bike racks, looking at this swoosh of the logo and kind of putting it wherever we could think of it. And this is Carolyn Peterson right here, jogging on the trail. She was a big jogger near the arch bridge, which is now more overgrown, but you can really see it here. And as a way to kind of grassroots fundraise, we developed a stepping stone program. This is inspired by Joe Higgins, who was chamber president in Olean, the Allegheny River Trail. He came and talked to us about their approach. And that certainly, it was a big success. Before we had a trail, we had trailheads with a lot of Rolling Stone donors and cornerstones and keystones. And we do hope to get that going again. It's been a little bit on hold the last few years. My friends, I think Vicki Armstrong is behind this, United Lethargists Well, not that she's lethargic, but I always like this one.
Oh,
And AccuFab has been a great partner, and it's just the men of steel. They just do beautiful things with this really difficult material. And that is the kiosk that we built, the first one. It was the most expensive one we did, for sure. Still standing, and it needs a little bit of love now. Carolyn McMaster of Briar Patch Veterinary Hospital, who took care of Riley for so many years, donated the first dog care station, which I think is totally cool. The trust company donated the milestones every quarter mile for the 2 miles throughout Cass Park. They're still there, most of them anyway. We have a whole new system that overlays, but we left these in place. And we thought history, it's a big part of these kinds of studies, is to understand the history of a place so that you can plan and design it well, and you can tell the stories that are there. And there's a lot of stories here. And another shout out to Vicki Armstrong, who wrote the history for us, and has always been great to work with. And I really looked at kind of these eras, the canal era, which is maybe 1820 to 1860, the railroad era, which kind of railroads did a lot of damage to canal, but put the canals out of functional business essentially. And then the recreation era, the rowing.
I'll chime in there about that, Rick. For people who are interested in this history, it is still on the Cayuga Waterfront Trail website. The Cayuga Waterfront Trail website is now integrated into the Friends of Stewart Park website, but you can either go to cayugawaterfronttrail.net or Friends of Stewart Park or stewartpark.org and click on the trail area at the top. But you can scroll through that and find this history. There's a brief history, and then there is a button that'll bring you to the full-on history that that Vicki and so many other people worked on.
You can see the all of the interpretive panels have been designed by Iron Design, Todd Edmond, and you can see they're rather dense, and a lot of interpretive, I don't know, people that look at these think, oh my gosh, there's a lot there, but we assume that Ithacans love to read. So, and we've designed them so you can read, just look at the pictures, or you can read just that top block with the bigger text, or you can really dive in and go for it. We think the designs are beautiful enough to carry this load of text. So we're very pleased with them.
Yep.
And we were, oh, go ahead.
Let me mention that we also have the airport there, because the hangar theater, of course, used to be the hangar for the airport. Right. And so there's a lot of transportation history in this area, not just the canals and the rails, but also the air.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we won a lovely award from the Rail to Trail Conservancy and ASLA, which we're pleased about. That was probably 2003 or something like that. With the money that we, I received a small feasibility study grant from the city, and then was able to do that feasibility study and then use that to apply for phase 1. The obvious phase 1 was Cass Park. There was a trail there already, not a loop, but a 6-foot wide, pretty old trail done in 72 or 73. So we worked with state parks to submit a grant. Kathleen Damiani was very helpful in making this happen, as was Senator Seward and Alan Cohen. And we got $150,000, and the city put up the balance of the fund, which was great. So we had a $500,000 project. We raised the money for the overlooks and the trailhead privately, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So that was our quick start in getting this going, and construction started in 2001.
I think at that time we thought this was all going to be completed by 2004.
Yeah, we did a 5-year project. It seemed so easy. We were on a roll early, yeah. But anyway, that's that. And you can see the 6-foot wide trail, what it used to be like. And then We did a 10-foot wide trail in Cass Park. The rest of the trail is done at 12 foot, which I think is more the modern standard, I guess. But you can see here, this is the this is the old landing strip. It was 90 feet wide, which was what this is, just to the north of the rink, hangar theater over here. So we cut out 30 feet of it to create a 60-foot wide typical parking lot and kind of did this curvy trail in there. And that's kind of what it looked like. And then when it was done, we said, we really need to do something with these places. And we had an article in the paper and saying that we were raising funding for the project. And Betty Miller, who is in the middle here, lived in Cayuga Heights with this house of birches and loved birch trees. So we decided to do the Miller Birch Grove. And I think we have some pictures of that later, but it turned out to be a great feature. Now they're a little overgrown and they're starting to kink the pavement. So we're having to think of what to do with that. Birches grow fast if you ever decide to plant them in your yard. So remember that. It's a good thing for the first 10 years. And this is the ribbon cutting. The trailhead was sponsored by the Park Foundation again, who gave us additional funding. Bill and Betty Miller, and Bill was a big sailor, so Betty wanted to honor his legacy by donating to the project. And then all the stepping stone donors for this trailhead.
This picture makes me very happy and very nostalgic. The people in this picture have passed. And, I see Stu Stein and I see Howard. I just see a lot of people who did an awful lot for this and are no longer with us except in our hearts. And Warren Real Estate and the realtors had raised a lot of money for us in that year as well. I think they raised something like $15,000 for the trail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks to Brian Warren and his team.
Yep.
Kathy Hopkins.
Yep.
So this is the day of, and John Reese had taken, John and I think Gary Hodges working with him, took a lot of the photos on the day of the event. And a lot of these shots are from there. And it's been really fun looking back at them over the year, in preparation for this. We did get this idea for this trail from the Petit Train du Nord up in Canada. So a lot of designing sometimes is stealing and borrowing. It's kind of like that with music too. You just borrow and make things your own. The Fergusons, I don't see them blading a whole lot. This PowerPoint has a mind of its own, it seems. Maybe it wants me to go faster. Anyway, they are big bladers on the trail. And it's a wonderful winter facility. The Cass Park Loop is the only section that is regularly maintained in the winter. We would like to change that in the future, but for now it's a really good thing, and we're thankful for that. And it's just gorgeous in the wintertime as well. And many of our bench donors, Nancy and Alan Peterson, have one that's still there, still used a lot, and they're really just wonderful features. I think the bench is beautiful. It's very durable, and it's much needed for people of all ages. See a lot of people reading books, just resting, hanging out, just enjoying the views. And one thing we've done successfully is reach out to foundations, businesses, organizations to support, and some individuals to support overlooks. This was the first one that we did, the Inlet Overlook, and it was supported by what was the Tompkins County Foundation. Now it's the Legacy Foundation. And that's, you run that foundation, right, Jean? Or you?
Yeah, I work in development for them at the moment. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. We should change the sign, I think.
So hard to do with, stone.
It's true, they're heavy, yeah. But they have equipment for that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it grew quickly, and it's been a beautiful setting for years. It's had some maintenance issues, there's been a lot of erosion, but and repair, but it's hanging in there and doing well. And then the lanes, Bruce and Heather, who just sold Purity. donated funding for Priscilla is Bruce's mom, and it's overlooking Cornell where she went to school. So it's another beautiful overlook on the other opposite corner of that little point. Has more of a purple theme in the plantings. And then this was funded by the Triad Foundation. We did this kiosk, a birding kiosk that rotates, and it's all about migration. What are the residents? What are the birds that migrate through Ithaca? What's the migration track they follow? Which is a really interesting, even for non-birding fanatics. But it just felt like it needed something else. So we went back to them and asked for additional funding to do a garden around it to display bird-friendly plants. And so this is just a few shots show us working with work study students to build it. And very quickly, we put in too much topsoil. And I have learned since that native plants don't need a lot of topsoil. And in fact, they don't really like it. They like it initially, but then they tend to flop. So we are dealing with that now, but it's a beautiful setting, and it was particularly beautiful soon after it was constructed. It's an area that the kiosk is great. It was built by AccuFab Custom Design, and all the panel is designed by Iron Design again. So thank you to the Triad
I
Foundation.
love that there's a red-winged blackbird on the top, because I have seen people going, shh, look, there's a bird on the top of it.
Photographers taking pictures and then go, oh, darn it. This is one we didn't discuss today, Jean, but I know for both of us, this was one of the most meaningful projects we did along the trail, for sure.
Absolutely. Corporal Bordoni was grievously wounded in Afghanistan, and his family and the Chosky family, which were very close to him, helped raise money to put in this fitness trailhead down along sort of a very near Island Health and Fitness. And it's an outdoor workout station, and it's pretty fabulous, I think.
Yeah, it's held up really well. Parkitects worked with us on it, Steve Lawson, and it was Tim and Carol helped with the fundraising. They started out just with wanting to put in a bench, and when they described Chris, how into fitness he was, we just talked about this because I know, as many of you know, there are actually still many of them in place, this fitness trailhead in Cass Park, kind of the old school ones that are separated, but the new model is to consolidate them all so you can do a workout. So it was a great opportunity. They loved the idea, and they fundraised very successfully. It was not a difficult fundraising task because there was a lot of just strong feelings about supporting this vision.
Yep.
So it was very exciting. And it is the best maintained trail. Carol and Tim are religious about taking care of this. It's always pristine and beautiful. And they don't want to be acknowledged as adopters, but they really take great care of it. So that's most of phase one. So phase two, we got a federal grant, about $450,000 that we used Park Foundation funding to write the grant for the city. So the city got the federal funding, and we were kind of sailing at that point, feeling good about ourselves. We, playing with the big players. I don't think Hillary bought a stone, but Doug Levine talked to her and tried. He gave his best shot, and Doug's a good salesman. Doug did a lot for tunes for the trail. He did many of those fundraisers for the trail before he took over the State Theater. So a big shout out to Doug Levine for all of his work on the trail. So phase two was a 1.5 mile, what we thought would be a slam dunk. But that's what it was going to be, about as easy as that, we thought. But it turned out not to be the case. And I guess, understandably so in some ways. Land is precious and people are careful about their land. So we had a vision that, this would be, and really the preliminary discussions, I think, with landowners, everyone loves the trail in concept, but when the reality hit, people were very concerned about it. So our vision for connecting the whole community to the waterfront, our opinion about it was, and we did receive 1.6 million. We had to raise an additional 200,000. But then suddenly there was a lot of kickback coming from the business community within that West End area. And so we had, and I know for the chamber, chambers are, respectful of private businesses. So I would imagine, I wasn't involved with the board directly, but I would imagine this was a challenging moment for a chamber.
Well, the board certainly, thought long and hard about this, but the board was very much convinced that this would be successful and would help make businesses in the west end of the city and in this area more successful. The problem was that this was not a lot of businesses, really. It was a handful of businesses that were very concerned. But their concern was that their businesses would be interrupted by people walking on the trail. They didn't see that people would stop and use their businesses, and they were just extremely concerned about it. And in the end, the city had to apply to use some eminent domain for some of the properties, which were not taking down any businesses, but pieces of land adjacent to the businesses.
Yeah, and these were not
Carolyn,
that
right?
Were waterfront dependent, water dependent. They were businesses that happened to be on the waterfront. So, right.
Carolyn Peterson was the mayor at that time and was very supportive, as was the entire city. But there was a lot of other opinion, and there was concern about things like the bridge that that you go over as you're heading up to the hospital. As you know, there was a bit of a lane taken out of that to allow the trail to come across it, and there was a lot of concern that it would hamper traffic, and fire engines couldn't get through, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the and there was even differing opinions about this. Like the fire commissioners had one opinion, and the fire chief had a different opinion. Ultimately, I think we had to set out cones and watch everything, and you had to have it filmed for a period of time, and it was fine.
Yeah. It is interesting. We were talking earlier about the opinion page and how the drama was sort of moderated through this filter, which is not there anymore. So it's just interesting to look back on the whole way that communication occurred 15, 20 years ago and longer. And it's just so different now. There probably is still an opinion page. I just don't read it, I guess.
Well, I mean, we have one paper now covering 3 communities,
right?
And it is different. Well, they all have different mastheads, but the fact is that the opinion pages, et cetera, are very similar to each other, and there's one publisher.
Right.
So it's a different time. We've gone to very different ways of communicating with each other, and it has helped put all of us in our own silos where we only read what we read and we don't read what everybody else reads. So.
Yeah, Day Wee was always a big supporter of the trail, both as owner of Maxie's. We did many benefits there, and with Red Feet Wine Market now. So thank you, Day Wee, for your putting it all on the line here. So we basically had to stop phase 2, the actual on private land, while the city went through acquisition, eminent domain, and then the state took that over. But in the meantime, we had funding from private sources to do trailheads. So we did the farmers market trailhead. And because it was a nice amenity for the farmers market, frankly, it just, it sort of made this corner much more accessible and beautiful and provided a lot of seating. So we had a ribbon cutting there, and we did call it the Trailhead to Nowhere in honor of the bridge to nowhere, which is now connected, by the way. And it's a beautiful walk from Home Depot all the way up to Stone Quarry Road, if you haven't done it yet. So this is a small trailhead ribbon cutting we did, I think in 2006 or so at the farmer's market. And it's still, I think, a beautiful place. I really would like to restore the planting here. It's, but the structure of it is, and there's lots of benches. It's heavily used. It always makes me really happy when I go there. And we do take care of it as far as just cleaning the surfaces. There's a lot of willow trees and tree debris, I guess, that kind of we need to keep on top of. So that's a maintenance task we do with some volunteers, some staff, some work study students. And we also did the trailhead across from Chemung Canal Trust, and they supported this significantly. It gave us a $25,000 grant. The other one was supported by the Triad Foundation, the market. But this was a nice gateway from the sidewalk into the Inlet Island Promenade, which was already there. So that had a good purpose to do. And now it does serve, excuse me, the waterfront trail as well. So back to this, I'll show you, we're just gonna, what happened in reality is we skipped over to phase 3, which was the market to Stewart Park on mostly public land. But since we're here, we'll just have a quick look at what this looked like when we did it. So this lane closure that Jean described, there was this kind of odd right-hand turn only into this dead end Park Drive, which no one could quite figure out why it was there, but it was an opportunity that we could not resist. So we had talked about maybe having it look like this, and if we did it, my wife and son and neighbors would use it. But it ended up looking more like this, which basically a Jersey barrier with a sidewalk poured in between the curb and the Jersey barrier, and it functions great. And it made a wider travel lane with a shoulder. So it's worked out very well. There's been no accidents. It actually helps traffic, in my opinion. And I think people have grown to be very comfortable with it. And just a few, these simulations are always fun to look at. That's what we thought it might look like. This is what it looks like now. Of course, it looking very different. This is what it used to look like just to the north on the way to the boathouse property. That's what it would have looked like with a trail. That's what it used to look like. Now it looks very different as well. There's been a lot of tree removal and cleaning up as we prepare for development in this area, or as the developer prepares. And then coming out to what I think is the most beautiful part of the trail in many ways, the area around the DOT site. And partly because it was not open before, so you really didn't get to enjoy the area. But this is what it used to look like, and it was hard to get there. This is kind of a strange looking simulation we did just to try to show what it might look like. And then this is what it looks like now. This is a more recent view of it. It's just a spectacular place to see the sunset and to just enjoy what I think is the most panoramic view of the inlet. And rowing is such a big part of this whole scene. This is great. And then the Crew Cove Overlook, that was also funded privately with native plantings, benches, overlooking the boathouses. We did this rather over-the-top, privately funded interpretive panel there that I really like with a stainless steel oar. We worked with AccuFab and Iron Design again on all of this. And it was about a $10,000 privately funded venture. A lot of rowing alum actually funded this, and community members as well. And it tells this amazing story of rowing that, like Janelle was saying, you can read about this on the website or watch the webinar we did last year. It's a really fantastic story of competitive rowing in Ithaca. It was the big sport back in the day, 1890s.
That day.
What?
That day, 1890s. I remember it well. I have to say, looking at this picture, Bill, Rick has always had a thing for the swing bench. He believes that it is an iconic symbol of Ithaca, and he really wanted cool swing benches, and he got one.
I got two. We got two, actually.
You got two.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get another, but Robert and Leslie Robert Van Reness and Leslie Green did one over in Cass Park. And it said, Robert and Leslie, they're big swing dancers, and it says on the plaque, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, which I love.
It is beautiful. It's a really stunningly beautiful bench.
My children really love it too, and they have been talking about how they want another one. So, so I think we might have to try and get some funding somewhere.
We raised 15,000 each, and the last one we did cost about 20. So we'll have to talk about that, you know.
Ouch.
The footer cost about 5, but you don't see it all. And the market trailhead, which we talked about, but it's on a market day. It's really lovely. So moving along, phase 3. This is at the Jean McPheeters Trailhead. There's 2 little semicircles. The trust company sponsored the Welcome to the Waterfront panel that's part of the kiosk and on one of those semicircles. And this is kind of the entry to the trail near the former chamber. I guess it's still currently the chamber, and sort of close to the access way under Route 13 from the schools.
I have to say, I'm very honored to have a trailhead in my name. And one of my friends pointed out that it is also a Pokemon site. So if any of you are into Pokemon, you can go there. However, the coolest thing about it is that there is a stone with my name on it. And I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up being buried there. Because, you know, it's already ready for me.
I think that's illegal, but maybe you know people, so maybe.
We're just not going to talk about it anymore, though. But Rick, here's a couple of questions and answer. And Katie Hatch asked, did you choose the plants and design the gardens, Rick?
For the most part, yes. Now, usually I work with Dan Siegel a lot of the plantsman, who grows local native plants, mostly seedlings, which that's sort of a distinction about cultivars versus seedlings that we really don't have time to get into. But yeah, I work a lot with Dan on some of these. Now we have so many that we can divide them and move them around. But yeah, and it gives me great joy to plant them and usually to maintain them too with volunteers. We'll talk about that in a little while.
The next question is, what have you all heard about dredging of the inlet and how that might impact the trail? And I would say that what I hear is that this is still enormously tied up in the enormity of the cost of it. The last I had heard is that they were going to try to dredge and put the spoils out in back of the kind of Wegmans area.
Home Depot or whatever. Yeah.
Home Depot, that whole place. But then they had completely miscalculated what this would cost to do. And I think then we had another downturn in the economy. And since then we've had COVID. So God only knows is what I would say.
So while we're here, I would like to, the trust company has been a big supporter of both the trail and Friends of Stewart Park. So I'd like to acknowledge that, certainly. Phase 3 of the trail, Maurice Hinchy and Dan Lamb were instrumental in getting $1 million earmark in the safety legislation, which really made this happen. It allowed the phase 3, kind of jumped over phase 2, built this. This was completed in 2010, connecting the market. And we'll look at that in a moment. But I just wanted to mention their role in this. It was huge. And also these federally funded projects are complicated and laden with bureaucracy. And we've had 2 masters of this. You can see Fernando over here. He's the director of the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, and also Tim Logue of the city engineer, now the director of engineering. They have both been just patient. You know, they understand the pace of these federally funded projects, and they just stick with it and make it happen. And Jean and I are pulling our hair out but we know we have to wait, and it always kind of works. So I just wanted to acknowledge that their contribution has been huge.
Hey, Rick, while you're talking about funding of projects, there is another question on the question and answer about fundings. And this question was, is there money to clean up the mud from where the trail flooded near the fire training site? And is there money to repave spots of the trail surface where it's buckled, that's rough for bikes and skating?
The answer is no and no. But we'll talk a little bit about the pavement issue. I think the city will get to that. It's a good winter task, and I have talked to them about it. In Cass Park, probably there's a larger repavement that's needed that I talk about in a moment. So the city will, they have a Department of Public Works, and they will certainly clean up the mud. There's no doubt about that. So that's just part of their operations. I think weaving the maintenance of the trail into an already overbooked Department of Public Works has real challenges that we as a community need to kind of discuss, plan for, figure out, because it really is a federally funded transportation way. It's more popular than ever. People want to use it in the winter. So there are, there are real issues with all of those. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we're going to move quickly. The Trailhead in Stewart Park is, like all the others, stepping stones donated by the Legacy Foundation and the Tompkins County Tourism Program, and a lot of stepping stone donors. I think it's beautiful. I love it. Overlooking the lake. The project that put this in, Trowbridge and Wolf designed a lot of beautiful native plantings along the water edge that I think helped screen the parking and really add a lot to the visual quality of this part of the park. The key thing about the trail, I mean, it's a very flat site, as you know, so it's accessible, and this is a huge issue for our community. We worked with the Cayuga Bird Club to fund an overlook that told the story about the history of the Renwick Wildwood, or the Fuertes Bird Sanctuary, as it's commonly called, and also about the habitat. And I think it's a really cool, Todd Edmond designed this, and Iron Design, and I think it's beautiful. And it tells a really fascinating story of one of Ithaca's early environmental actions in 1913, when Arthur Allen and Luis Agassiz Fuertes and James Needham, a lot of early national players on the birding and environmental scene, kind of confronted city parks, the Department of Public Works, who was going to clean up this area, and educated them about the importance of the wildwood being kept wild. We retain the bridges.
I love that bridge. I love that wooden bridge. I just think the wooden bridge is spectacular.
It is.
And I've always loved these bridges, so.
Yeah, we wanted to replace them and we couldn't because of cost, but I'm kind of glad we didn't. Sometimes having less funding is not a bad thing. You have to be more reasonable. Trail along the golf course, lovely. This area has changed a lot. This is what it used to look like before the trail. We did a simulation of what it might look like. This is what it looked like after the trail. Jen Demarest and the kids, Noah's Stream Collaborative, using it many years ago. And now, it's a little fuzzy, I took this picture, but this is work that's being done now as part of the City Harbor project. Guthrie has built a medical building there. And Whittam Design, they met with me about the signs, and I think the signage in this area is much better now. It was never properly signed, I think. And the willows are removed, and now it's more native ornamental grasses, and I think it will function better. So in this case, I think they've done nice improvements that enhance the trail, and I'm appreciative of that. I'm not going to get into this much because we don't have a lot of time, but the state parks did this phase 4 of the trail, and it's always been on the plan to do it kind of like this little mark that's been on there since day one. But Peter Fry, Fred Bond, the whole state parks team did just an amazing design and implementation of this. And I know most of you have walked it. It's just stunningly beautiful site and beautifully executed. So, and they used our trail branding, the benches, the bike racks, the signs, which I think was very thoughtful of them to create the feeling that it's all one trail. So this is a major improvement to kind of the crowning achievement of the waterfront trail, I think. So and we didn't have to do anything. It's great.
One thing I did want to mention, I forgot to say, is that originally the idea would be that the trail would go around the golf course on the water side. And that proved pretty much impossible. Are those children adorable or what? It proved impossible because people were playing golf on there, and when they hit their balls, they could well have hit people in the head, which would not have been a good thing. We actually looked at the possibility of redesigning the golf course in some fashion so that it was less likely that people would be hit in the head with golf balls. But that proved to be insanely costly, and also we would have had to erect an enormous net fairly high to go along that whole trail. And so we went along the creek side, and actually I think it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, I still think we should have provided helmets for all the trail users, but that's just my opinion. Would have been a cheaper alternative, but yeah, no, that's another case where you just give what you're taking, and it's actually oftentimes fine.
Yeah,
but it was a mini battle, I guess, not the big one, but a little one.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, just a few images of what could be done that also addresses some of these questions. Cass Park Trail, as you all know now, if you didn't know before, is 20 years old. And one of the first things, well, two things that really get impacted fairly quickly are, other than all of us in 20 years, is the signs. They really need to be redone. It's sad to see the condition of them, and they're easy to do, and we should just do this. And then the pavement condition is another another issue as well. I guess I'm a little out of sequence here, but there are many areas where those pesky trees, they buckle pavement. They don't do it along stone dust trails because it's a little more forgiving, but pavement trails, they seem to rise to the surface and buckle, seeking oxygen, I think, and they just buckle pavements. And there are many cases along the golf course and also in Cass Park where it's a pretty easy fix. You can sometimes grind them down. In Cass Park, though, more is needed, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Winter maintenance is a huge deal. Now, Cass Park, as I said, is maintained. It turns out that sort of the city has to get from DPW down to the bridges, both the new bridge across the inlet and then the new bridge where we took that lane on Route 96. And on their way to do it, they plow the trail. But the connection to Stewart Park from DPW is not plowed. So it's something that we need to work with on the city. I think it's really important that it be used year round, and we have to just respect the limitations that they have with staffing. And it's a very challenging time now. So, but it's something that we is on our radar and needs attention. We have some great trail adopters. Trowbridge and Wolf is one, landscape architects. Trowbridge Wolf Michaels take care of the Inlet Island trailhead. And then the dragon boaters just do an incredible amount of work in Cass Park. They're just really energetic people. So we're appreciative of that. Green Star has been one. Carol Mallison, who is watching, I'm sure, takes care of a section from around Green Star to the farmer's market, picking up litter. Thank you, Carol. And she's been involved since day one of all this. So that's something that's important. I just had to mention Coach. He was at our ribbon cutting. I didn't meet him, and I thought he was an interesting character. But I really didn't know what he did. And then about 6 months later, I got a call from this person saying, there's some ruts in the pavement and I want to fix them. Can I just go ahead and buy some asphalt and fix it? And I said, well, I really think that's a great idea. Can I meet you? And I met him, and turns out he rollerbladed at age 82. Every morning he rollerbladed the trail, and he would actually weed whack the whole edge of the trail on both sides. I mean, it was just unbelievable what he did. I just thought the trail was perfect all the time, and I had no idea why. So now I know, now that he's passed away. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a great story. The pavement issue that was brought up, this is a real problem area. I always bike right here now, along with everyone else, and the runners run here. But this would be an easy fix to just grind this down, and eventually it should be repaved.
Yep.
I think the trailhead needs a little attention too. There's some settling in the bricks, the kiosk. Structurally, it's fine, just needs to be the letters. We've done it once, we should do it again. There's just a few things here that I would like to restore because it's a really important space. One really exciting thing that, again, State Parks is doing, there's always been a rather sad, understated entrance to the Black Diamond Trail. I know many of you have walked or biked up to Upper Taganic from Cass, right across from the Children's Garden. So this trailhead is underway now. Peter Fry, the landscape architect, designed it. It's kind of his last parting shot before retirement. I think it's really beautiful. Has a railroad inspired design for the kiosk. Cayuga Ski and Cyclery donated this bike tool station, a pump, and a lot of tools. All of this has just been happening over the winter as far as the signs going up. I was surprised when I saw it just 2 days ago. We're going to supply some wayfinding signs that we have, but it's a fitting gateway. And it's all dedicated to Andres Ozolins, who has done so much for the biking community and passed away probably 3 or 4 years ago. So this is really, really exciting and a great contribution for the Waterfront Trail, I think, and a fitting gateway into a really significant. I mean, when you combine the Waterfront Trail with the Black Diamond Trail, it's a significant trail network that will only continue to grow. And that's where it's located. One thing that I'm kind of keen on is this idea, there's this project called the Pollinator Pathway Project, and and we certainly are eligible. So many of the plantings that we've done, they're all native plantings or largely native. And I would like to be certified. It's not hard to do. So that's on the agenda for this year. And I think it would help in our marketing efforts and our education efforts. And I'm really excited about that. And one part of that that I think fits in with the city's Green New Deal is to reduce mowing. I think we just don't need to mow as much as we mow in the parks. You want to mow places that are used. You don't need to mow every square inch of a park. So, but that's a hard thing to change because there's a lot of pride involved with people, the staff, and
I think the Cornell Botanic Garden has done a really good job of that, of showing how areas can, some places can be mowed and others not, and it's very attractive. Someone just asked who's responsible for maintaining the Black Diamond Trail, and that's it's a state entity, so state parks.
Yeah.
And has any progress been made in terms of grooming the trail in the winter for cross-country skiing? And I'm not sure if they mean the Black Diamond or the Cayuga Waterfront Trail.
I suspect they mean the Black Diamond. Cayuga Waterfront Trail is so curvy and paved, it's really not great for cross-country skiing. But Black Diamond, I'm sure when it's snowy, it kind of is, people use it and then create tracks, but I don't think it's ever been groomed. But
it could be. I think that that's something that people talk about. Because you just need a machine that's designed to do that.
Right. This crossing has always bothered me and many others. It's nothing has ever happened there. If you sit and watch it for a while, or if you use it a lot, you know that there's a lot of traffic. A lot of this traffic that you see here is making right-hand turns up Route 89. And so We are working on this. The state is doing some planning on Buffalo Street about converting it to a one-way, I think inbound, but I could be wrong about that. But I'll be meeting with Tim Logue, and there's a lot of interest with Bike Walk Tompkins. I've gotten some emails from Doug Dilla, who is, many of you know, and very community involved and a big biker. And so it's something that if there's opportunities to address this, there's some signal timing issues, maybe there's something more aggressive than that, creating a turning lane. So it's just I think it's kind of a weak link in the trail, particularly if you're biking with kids and stuff. But it functions and people are respectful, but it's just, you have to be really careful.
Okay.
And just a couple more things. Another opportunity that I think people are on, Bike Walk Tompkins is on this, Fernando de Aragon of the Transportation Council is on this, but to try to create a better connection from the schools way back here under Route 13 to the beginning of the trail. This is a big deal. And there's a lot of room available. It's easy to do. It's just a state highway, so the state needs to do it. And that the planning is underway for that. And I would suspect within 5 years that will happen. Generally, these things don't happen quickly if it's a DOT project, but it's something that is on people's radar. And it's located there. Sorry, I'm forgetting about those. And then a big issue, I mean, I'm sure all of us have different feelings about all the development that's occurring along the waterfront. I think it's a place where people should live, and I want people to live on the waterfront. City Harbor is under development there. You can see Guthrie going in. The market is undergoing some pretty dramatic planning changes. I've met with Whittam Planning and Design about the trail. I think I'm comfortable with their approach there. Maybe the structure in the parking lot it's going to be a big change, and I think people love the market the way that it is. So we'll see how that goes. I think the trail, it's not our job to be the minister of aesthetics as far as all of the development that's going on. But and the DOT site right here that's a big deal. And that's where to me, that's the prize site. I mean, the view of that site from all along Route 89 and the trail is huge. And I think I would like that. Actually, I think, Jean, you need to take that on and make sure that is absolutely beautiful. And I think that should be your next project. People,
Yeah, in a moment of insanity, I said that I would chair the zoning commission of the town of Caroline, for which I expect to be bodily assumed into heaven at any moment. So when I get that done.
Okay, that should work.
However,
as far as time for
I am promised that there will be no time in purgatory for me after that. So.
Okay, well, maybe you could talk to the big guy and we could.
I'll talk to the big guy. Okay.
We're both Catholic, if you haven't figured that out yet.
You can see it's been ruin others.
And then the downtown, the West End area too will be undergoing pretty dramatic transformations too. So our concern is that the trail right of way be respected. It might change, but that the experience is only enhanced by whatever development might occur. I think the city is on board with that, but the devil is in the details. So it's something that we want. Yes.
We had a question that was specifically about that one intersection you were talking about, but I think that it really ties in with talking about the new development and the different places where the trail crosses roads. And have there been many pedestrian and car accidents in those intersections, or have we been pretty lucky so far?
Not to my knowledge, no, and I'm sure I would have heard about it. So no, we've been very fortunate. I mean, I think they're designed to standards, so it's not like they're. But I think, it's kind of like accessibility. There's ADA accessibility, but then there's a level of accessibility that is at a higher level, and I think that's what we would like for Stewart Park, certainly, and that's what we would like for the Waterfront Trail. And I think think it's similar with safety. I think there are just issues there that need to be addressed. But no, I haven't heard of anything. And so there have been no accidents that I know of, or crashes, I guess is more the word, in the industry. So we have been fortunate, maybe lucky, if that's how you want to characterize it. People at this intersection here are very respectful generally. People stop, which is great. This is just a whole different situation, and visibility is different, speeds are different, the level of traffic is different. It's kind of complicated, so you have to really cross very carefully. I think this is the last one. So accessibility, as I said, is a big deal. And I just want to point out, I think most of you probably know this, but I'm not sure. Initially, all the benches we did were kind of stuck out on a little pad, and we learned, maybe it should have been obvious, but that they're not accessible for people in wheelchairs. So now we're kind of undergoing this change where they're bigger pads so that a wheelchair or a stroller can park here. That's not why we didn't center the bench in the pad. They're 10 by 6. And then there's room here for a stroller or a walker to walk in front of this and sit down. So that's the new model for accessibility. I mean, we're totally fortunate that the trail is generally totally accessible, except for one little area to the west of Route 96 going down into Cass Park. It's a little steep, but smooth. But this is it's a big benefit that we have, is that it's so flat, and we need to make sure that our designs don't, that our designs enhance it and don't hinder the accessibility. So this we'll be rolling out a new program to sponsor more benches and a map of opportunities. It's something that we haven't done really over the past couple of years. So we will be doing that this year.
Good. Did you say that was your last slide?
Well, I thought it was, but we are going to do a couple of programming things. Water music will happen this year, and water music is totally cool. So look for that. Janelle mentioned it's in August, and that is the last slide. Yes.
We have some questions.
Okay.
More questions.
Wondering if you can answer. Can we get a railroad crossing from the trail to the end of Cascadilla Street to access Green Star? Is that in development at all?
Yes and no. I've seen plans for that. I know that Ithaca College would really like that, because now they have to cross Cornell, and Cornell would like that too, because a lot of traffic crosses a very tight Cornell boathouse site to get to Ithaca College. I understand that there's a new railroad now, like I think it's the Ithaca Railroad, that serves Cargill Salt Factory. So I think more things are possible, and I've seen design plans for doing just that. It would be great. To get to Purity and to get to Green Star. But I don't know any definitive plans for that. The other crossing at the end of Court Street is also being considered. Now it's a private crossing, but just formalizing that a little bit would be nice, so that you can, and I suspect when more development occurs there, that will happen. So I think it's on people's radar, but I mean, these things do take a long time.
The other question is, they mentioned that in the Boston area on some bikeways, they have a double yellow line, probably with there being so much traffic. I've also been on a pedestrian bikeway in Minnesota that is like that. And they are wondering if anything like that is desirable on the Cayuga Waterfront Trail. Seems like sometimes bikers aren't very courteous, and if so, would it be something to think about with the whole trail, or just portions that are more that are accessed more?
Yeah, well, we discussed that a lot at the beginning, and the feeling was that that's a maintenance task that no one felt the city had the capacity to handle. So, and I guess some of us came down to the idea that it would look asphalt is a little, I mean, in a lot of ways we don't like asphalt, but it's actually has a smaller carbon footprint than concrete, certainly. And it sort of tends to blend into the landscape when it grays out a bit. And having a yellow stripe makes it look a little more road-like. So I don't know, it felt like maybe this trail, given the level of use, didn't need it. But there are a lot of curvy places where I think it would be a really good idea. You know, like coming off. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and it's something we should look at.
I like in the inlet area, I appreciate the where it kind of curves around some buildings really quickly.
Yeah.
There's some really good signage about going slow and watching out for people in
Those
that
would be-
area.
That would be a really good site, like going where Puddle Dockers used to be, around what used to be the Bistro Q, or whatever, that many iterations. That would be the place to do it, certainly first.
And somebody says, yes, maybe some courtesy signs that remind bikers to use bells, call out, something like that might be a nice way to do. We could definitely look into courtesy signs.
Yeah.
One thing you didn't mention that I wanted to mention is that we've had some talk at the office about the future of the Cayuga Waterfront Trail, and how currently, technically, it loops in Stewart Park using the road as part of the loop. But we've talked about potentially closing off that loop and making it so that people can stay on the trail itself and not on the road, and do a circle around Stewart Park.
Right.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I am actually shocked that I didn't include that. I was avoiding all the Stewart Park PowerPoints. So, but yeah, I think having a loop in the park is critical, because people like to walk around in circles, and now they do that, but they use the road. It used to be that people just used the road before the trail. It's actually shocking to think that before the waterfront trail, there was like no pathways in Stewart Park, like literally no pathways. So we have that all mapped out, where it would basically, if you enter the park, you would take a left and go past the Memorial Flagpole Garden, past the playground, cross the road towards the tennis court, and then cut over to the lagoon and over to the bridge. So it actually is all planned. And yeah, really good point.
One thing I'd like to mention that a lot of people don't realize, which we at Friends of Stewart Park, as stewards of the Cayuga Waterfront Trail, did not even recognize ourselves, is that now when you take the trail, not just the main portion of the trail that goes up and down, but also including the little side paths like Floral Avenue and things like that, the trail is now 8 miles long. Technically just under, I think it's technically 7.8, but the folks at ithacatrails.org told us that we can call it an 8-mile trail, which I think is really fantastic.
Right. No, that's significant. And I also wanted to, didn't show this, but Tim Logue and the city have prepared a grant to connect the Gateway Trail behind Home Depot to the Waterfront Trail. So next year, there'll be a new bridge crossing the flood channel to connect the Floral Avenue Trail to Cecil Malone Drive. And then there's a grant which is a multi-million-dollar grant to the federal government to then connect that through the whole area behind what they call Southwest Park, the dredge site, and Home Depot, to connect to the Gateway Trail. And that will eventually get to Robert Treeman as well, like through Buttermilk. But so that's probably 5 years out, if it happens at all. But I think they'll get the grant. I think it's a city.
There's also a mention here, Fred Cowett says, did you mention the restrooms in the Wharton Studio Building and the future Wharton Studio Park Center right along the trail? So yes, it is very nice to have year-round bathrooms, and they're quite beautiful and charming. So, and that is going to be a pretty amazing thing.
How did I forget
when the
that?
Wharton studio enters.
No, that, yeah, that's a big deal. To have park, year-round bathrooms is huge. And just to have any public bathrooms along the waterfront trail is great. So, so yeah, that's a big focus of Friends of Stewart Park's work is, and it will be a great amenity for the waterfront trail to have a destination along the trail where you can hang out, get a coffee, get a snack, relax, learn a bit about the park, learn a bit about the trail, learn a bit about the lake, and go to the bathroom. I mean, yeah, it's great. So yes, no, a big shout out to Diana Reisman, who is our board chair, and to the Wharton Studio Museum for all the work we're doing. The city has given us some funding from the Recovery Act to sort of design that whole complex in the Wharton Studio Park Center, as we call it now. So we'll be rolling out plans probably in May for that, and that'll be a big amenity for the waterfront trail as well, I think. So we're very excited about that. And
For sure.
I have my waterfront trail hat on, so I haven't gotten into the whole Stewart Park thing. So I'm glad someone caught that.
Before we end, I just want to say that I hope all of you have the same joy every time I walk on the trail, or even when I drive by and I see people using the trail. It gives me immense, immense joy. And I am so thankful to everyone in this community and outside who sent money to help support it, to buy the amenities along the trail, who supported this through 14 long, crazy years of thinking that this was going to be done the next week. And it took 14 years. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with Rick and with the city and with everyone we mentioned tonight. Thank you all so much. I am so thankful.
Yeah,
I will take a moment to plug, if you would like to support the trail. It is very easy. As I mentioned before, our website is connected with the Friends of Stewart Park website. The current donating to the trail page also is the volunteer page for volunteering for the trail. So you can go to, there's a C there, but friendsofstewartpark.org/CWT-volunteer. And that will take you directly to the page where you can donate to support, give a gift to support the trail and the work that is done on the trail. You can also mention in there or email Rick if you want specific to do something specific on the trail, like if you'd like to give towards a bench or anything like that. And then you can also find out there how to become a trail adapter, how to do one-time cleanups and landscaping projects. There's all sorts of ways that you can support the trail.
Yeah. And I just want to follow up on Jean's comment too. Thank you for this really couldn't have happened without the chamber and with Jean leading the chamber. So it's been an amazing partnership. And thank you, Jean. It's been a pleasure to work with you on all of this. And
thank you.
I too have, I get a lot of love. I didn't always get that, but I do now when I'm on the trail, and I really appreciate everyone appreciating this amazing amenity. I wanted to point out a person that I didn't mention, who really was instrumental in this, and that's Susan Blumenthal. Many of you remember Susan when she was more active in the city, but she was very involved in planning on Common Council, and I think she just really dug into this, financially supported a little feasibility study that really got the whole thing going. And I mean, was really engaged in all the committee meetings that Jean and I had with the city, deeply engaged and just a real player. So I think she and certainly Carolyn Peterson, Samanti Myrick, all the mayors, we had 3 mayors, Alan Cohen, everyone really got it, really stuck with it. And it just couldn't have happened without this public-private partnership that made it real. So Okay, I guess we're done. You will be able to watch this. How long does this take to get up, Janelle? Like a week or
It
so?
usually takes less than a week, right around a week at the most. We will have it up on our YouTube page, and be sure to share it with everybody that you think would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and if you have
Yep.
comments that you know, related to the questions that you've answered, you can send them to info@friendsofstewartpark.org. We would appreciate that, just to kind of have a record of what you're thinking about the trail and how you experience it and what you think it needs. That would be helpful to us. Okay.
Okay,
I guess
Thank you.
Good night,
Have a
everyone.
great night, everyone. Thank you again,
Thanks,
Jean.
Janelle. Thanks, Jean. Thanks all for coming.
see you all on the trail. Bye.
Hmm.